Hello everyone, and welcome back to the 3T Path channel. Welcome back to our Uddhava-gita course. So now we're finalizing this wonderful chapter on the mystic powers, the siddhis, the yoga superpowers. So much talked about, but which we don't really see these days anymore, probably due to the lowering of consciousness and the difficulties of the world. Now, so we'll be finishing this chapter now. And of course, if you want to watch all the other more than 80 classes in this course already available, make sure you become a member of this channel, and the instructions are here in the description of the video. So here we are, we're on the 11th canto, 15th chapter, in verse 29. So Krishna now will go on to the protection of the elements. Just as the bodies of aquatics cannot be injured by water, similarly, the body of a yogi whose consciousness is pacified by devotion to me, and who is fully developed in yoga science, cannot be injured by fire, sun, water, poison, and so forth. So of course this is like a wonderful power, but it's considered a minor, it's not even one of the 10 minor secondary powers. It's just a very minor yogic power mentioned also in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. Purport: the creatures dwelling in the ocean are never injured by water. Rather, they enjoy life within the watery medium. Similarly, for one skilled in the techniques of yoga, fending off attacks by weapons, fire, poison, and so on is a recreational activity. Prahlad Maharaj was attacked by his father in all these ways, but because of his perfect Krishna consciousness, he was not injured. So this is the most famous story we have of this power. Prahlad Maharaj, he's the son of the great, terrible Asura, Hiranyakashipu. He's the reason why we have Nrsingadev, the Nrsingadev deity, which I just noticed you can't quite see today. But the Nrsingadev deity, which you already see here on my altar. So Nrsingadev came down to protect Prahlad Maharaj from Hiranyakashipu. And before Nrsinga came down, Hiranyakashipu tried to kill Prahlad with all kinds of things, including weapons and poisons and throwing him off cliffs and all these different techniques and fire, all these things. And of course, nothing happened to Prahlad. He was completely untouched. And that's when he got really worried. Hiranyakashipu got really freaked out when he couldn't do anything to his son, and he got really worried. And anyway, that's when Hiranyakashipu then acts in such a way that Nrsingadev comes down and finally gets rid of him. But so he's a famous example of this power. The purity, and also you'll have here in the Bhagavad Purana, the prachetas, you have people who are spending 10,000 years meditating underwater. So you have that once in a while. You have these yogis who, just to have some peace, would meditate underwater. In the case of the prachetas, 10,000 years. So these things come up again. It's an amazing thing. This the superpowers, because it really does come up everywhere. Like all these different stories throughout all the Puranas. You know, it's in the Yoga Sutras, it's mentioned in the yoga tradition. I mean, it's just everywhere. So it's hard to imagine it's just everybody's just lying and faking it the whole time, because it must have happened at some time. People must have had these powers, and of course now we're just so corrupted and fallen, and our minds are so polluted that we can't do it anymore. The pure devotees of the Lord depend fully on the mercy of Lord Krishna, who possesses mystic opulences to an infinite degree, and is therefore known as Yogeshvara, the Lord of Yoga, the master of all mystic power. Because devotees are always connected to Lord Krishna, they do not feel any need to separately develop powers already possessed unlimitedly by the Lord, by their master and protector. So that's the idea. In the path of bhakti, the path we're on, you don't worry about having these powers because you know Krishna has all these powers, right? There's no question of that. So if Krishna has all these powers, let him use these powers if it's so needed. But if it's not, it's fine. I mean, if it's my time to go now, drowning or burning, fine. That's okay. I'll do it, you know. And if to protect myself from the sun, I have to put some sunscreen on or put a baseball cap, that's fine too. You know, I don't have to go through the whole process of spending decades trying to develop a mystic superpower when you can just buy a baseball cap and get some sunscreen. So we just use our good sense. We don't worry about these things because of this. If a human being falls into the middle of the ocean, he quickly drowns, whereas the fish enjoy happiness sporting in the same waves. Similarly, the conditioned souls have fallen into the ocean of material existence and are drowning in the reactions to their sinful activities. Whereas the devotees recognize this world to be the potency of the Lord and enjoy pleasurable pastimes within it by fully engaging in the loving service of Lord Krishna. Verse 30. My devotee becomes unconquerable by meditating on my opulent incarnations, which are decorated with Srivatsa and various weapons, and are endowed with imperial paraphernalia such as flags, ornamental umbrellas, and fans. So this is how to become unconquerable. Purport: the imperial paraphernalia of the Lord's opulent incarnations indicates his omnipotency. And the devotees become unconquerable by meditating on the Lord's powerful, royally equipped incarnations. As stated by Bhiva Mangala Thakur in Krishna Karnamrita, verse 107, my dear Lord, if we develop unflinching devotional service unto you, then automatically your transcendental, youthful form is revealed to us. Thus, liberation herself waits with folded hands to serve us. And the ultimate goals of dharma, of artha, economic development, and kama, sense gratification, patiently wait to render service to us. Very nice. So that's the real unconquerable aspect we're looking for. We want to become unconquerable in the sense of conquering the material world, conquering the ocean of birth and death. So we don't want to be conquered by death again and again anymore. So that power you will get. Verse 31. A learned devotee who worships me through yoga meditation certainly obtains in all respects the mystic perfections that I have described. So now he's going to start wrapping this chapter up. Purport. The word yoga dharanaya indicates that each devotee obtains the particular perfection for which he has qualified himself. And the Lord thus concludes his discussion of yoga siddhis. Verse 32. For a sage who has conquered his senses, breathing, and mind, who is self-controlled and always absorbed in meditation on me, what mystic perfection could possibly be difficult to achieve? So it's very interesting that, it's really easy, Krishna is saying, what could be the problem? What could be so difficult? So, it must have been easier somehow, but it's not now. Purport. Srila Sridhar Swami comments as follows. Sridhar Swami is the oldest commentary on the Bhagavad Purana we have still preserved, and it's about 800 to 900 years ago. Lord Krishna here expresses that there is no need to practice many different processes, for by completely carrying out even one of the above mentioned procedures, one controls one's senses, becomes absorbed in him, and thus achieves all mystic perfections. Srila Jiva Goswami, who was a spiritual master from about 500 years ago, 400 years ago, notes that one must meditate on the transcendental form of the Lord, which is free from any material designation. This is the essence of advancing in the yoga system. Thus one acquires all mystic perfections very easily from the personal body of the personality of Godhead. Verse 33. Learned experts in devotional service state that the mystic perfections of yoga that I have mentioned are actually impediments and are a waste of time for one who is practicing the supreme yoga, by which one achieves all perfection in life directly from me. So as is always the case in these verses, when they're talking about the mystic powers, you have to come to a verse like this. So at the end, everything is explained, and then boom, it's a waste of time. Don't do it. So there's a big warning. It always comes with a warning. Patanjali does the same thing in the Yoga Sutras. Like he goes on, and all these do this, and this is that, and that. But hey, you know what? You have to be able to just don't do any of that stuff. It doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't, and I've explained in my previous classes, it doesn't make any sense that you'd want to have any of these things. When you understand spirituality, when you understand your situation, you would never want to have all these powers. Because you just want to elevate your consciousness. There's so much to work on. If you haven't been doing this for a long time, you haven't noticed just how much there is to work on. Your consciousness is not an easy thing to control, your mind. So your thoughts, all the samskaras we have to burn up, all the influences from kama, from desire for sense gratification, from krodha, from anger, from lobha, from greed, all the influences of rajas and tamas. So all these things, this is hard. It's already hard work. Hard work in your mind, so fickle, and it's just going everywhere all the time, and you want to bring it back to Krishna, to devotion, and your mind's like slipping and sliding all over the place like a crazy monkey. So it's so much to work on. This is what you want to work on. You don't want to do something else and then get caught up trying to get some sort of superpower in this world. No. This is the power we're working on, the power to raise our consciousness, the power to have devotion to Krishna, and of course then the power to not take birth again, not be in this situation anymore, not be in such a dangerous, horrible situation as we are now. The more you advance, the more you become aware, this is a horrible situation we're in. Being an eternal soul stuck in a material body is a very dangerous, horrible situation. You're subject to, I'm sick now. So I'm subject to suffering, and you're subject to mental suffering and physical suffering. There's so many forces and so many things. And just like a little, the very tip of your pinky can just give you endless pain. It's crazy, isn't it? Just like a little tiny thing, it could drive you nuts with pain. A tooth, if you've had toothaches, it's just like one little thing and it can just completely ruin your life. You can have a horrible headache, and they even have this thing called a suicide headache because it's so horrible. It's like this, and it's such horrific pain that people really want to commit suicide. So there's all these dangers, like they say, danger at every step. Padam, padam, bipadam. At every step. So this is such a horrible situation, so dangerous. So that's what you want to work on. I have to get out of here. You don't want to mess around. You're not playing like, oh, I want to do this thing for fun. Like, no, I have to get out of here. So you have to put all your energy into that. So these things, so learned experts in devotion and bhakti, the learned experts, they say this is an impediment. And I explain why it's an impediment, because if you have some superpower, then you're going to want to get more involved with matter. And we're trying to get out of matter. We're trying to do viveka, disconnect Purusha from Prakriti in the language of the Yoga Sutras. We want to get out of matter, not get more involved with it. So when you have superpowers and you want to get more, hey, it's like, hey, this is a cool toy you want to play with. It's like, wow, I can do this thing. I mean, any of these powers mentioned here, it would drive any of us insane. We would go nuts putting it to use. Like, I have to check this out. Oh, look, water and fire, and you're like going around and entering fires, and and you just go crazy, like go into the water in the ocean. It's going to go to the bottom of the ocean. I'm going to go see the Titanic. Just like this, I'm just going to dive down. And then you start like Instagramming it or something. So you just go crazy. Any of these powers, what to speak of, the ones we talked about last time, the pleasure gardens of the demigod, you go crazy. You go completely crazy. People get addicted to disgusting pornography on the internet. Can you imagine if you could actually go to the pleasure gardens of the demigods, like some divine pornography? You go crazy. Go insane. So any of these things would just drive our mind, it would just drag our mind to matter, and we would waste our human life, and you take birth again, and you would accumulate so much karma in the process as well. So it'd be a real disaster, a real impediment. So it's actually, thank God we can't get these mystic powers. It would actually be a complete disaster. So they are a waste of time for one who is practicing the supreme yoga, by which one achieves all perfection in life directly from me. They're a waste of time. You just go to Krishna. Just take shelter of Krishna. Krishna says, take shelter of me. Just take shelter of Krishna. That's all we want. We just want to be there in shelter of Krishna. Just feeling ashraya. Feeling that protection, just begging the Lord, please protect me, please, please, please. Shelter me. That's all you want. You just want to be sheltered by Krishna. You want to get out of here, as, with the least amount of suffering possible. You just want to get out of here, back home, back to Godhead. So very important. Always you have these verses. It is common sense that whatever is a useless waste of time should be given up. Therefore, one should not pray to God for mystic yoga perfections. For a pure devotee who has no material desire, even impersonal liberation is a useless disturbance in his life. And what to speak of the material perfections of yoga, which cannot even be compared to impersonal liberation. Such mystic perfections may be wonderful for an immature and inexperienced person, but they are not impressive for a learned person who has understood the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They're really not. Because if you understand the nature of God, if you understand Krishna, the all-attractive, Krishna means all-attractive. If you understand the nature of all-attractiveness of love, the nature of engaging in an eternal, loving relationship with an infinitely attractive, supreme being, with infinite variety of activities in love and service, that is way beyond any experience you can have of the senses in matter. Way beyond. That is the supreme situation for the soul, because you're a person. But we forget we're persons. We forget that we're actually persons who want to, who feel, we have emotions, we have love. So if you forget your dimension as a person, and then you want to have experiences. But experiences like, oh, I'm going to drive this fast car, I'm going to, have that sexual experience, I'm going to, enjoy seeing this thing. These things, seeing, touching, hearing, these sensual experiences of the senses, the pleasure, there's pleasure. I'm not saying that there isn't, but that pleasure does not compare to the pleasure of love, of relationship. The pleasure of love is way beyond all these experiences. If you've ever loved someone, and I hope if you haven't yet, one day you will. Maybe when you have children, that helps. It's something that does develop a very pure, intense love in one, if you're lucky. So when you experience love, and you can experience, of course, love with Krishna, then you'll see that there's nothing else. There's nothing. You wouldn't change. You'd sacrifice that for any other experience. That one's at the top. You wouldn't say, okay, I'll give up all the love I've ever experienced. Let's go back in time just so I can have that other thing. No, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't do that. Because that's the topmost thing. So that's why, if you understand God, you don't want any of these things. You want to get out of it. You want to develop your relationship, and you can feel that relationship right now, even while incarnated, even while in this material body. Of course, you can develop your loving feelings, bhakti, more and more and more. There's no limit to them. It doesn't okay, that's it. Doesn't get any more. It just keeps increasing as long as you can keep your mind focused, as long as you can direct it, as long you feed it, it increases. It will only stop if you get distracted and you forget about it. So we have this, so why would you want anything else? Because you can get the supreme best thing. So if you've understood the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you will not find these things impressive. Simply by obtaining Lord Krishna, one dwells within an infinite ocean of mystic opulences. Therefore, he should not waste precious time pursuing separate mystic perfections. Okay. Verse 34. Whatever mystic perfections can be achieved by good birth, herbs, tapas, austerities, and mantras can all be achieved by devotional service to me. Indeed, one cannot achieve the actual perfection of yoga by any other means. So now, after all those explanations of how to attain these superpowers, Krishna mentions, as does Patanjali, after mentioning all the superpowers, that you can achieve them by good birth, by herbs, and by mantras as well. Not just by tapas, by these practices of austerities, but you can achieve them just by birth, herbs, and mantras. And of course, I explained that there's these examples in the Mahabharata of mystic powers with mantras, when Kunti uses mantras to invoke the demigods to have children with them and create the Pandavas. That's an example of she received the mantra. She didn't do anything else. She just received the mantra. And with that mantra, she could then have that power. And then she passed that mantra on. And then the Pandu's other wife could also use it. So this is you can do it by mantras. Herbs, you don't see that so much in this. I don't remember any mention of people getting powers with herbs. They mention that you can get them, but I don't remember any stories of people getting powers with herbs in the Bhagavad Purana, at least. I don't remember any, or in the Mahabharata, but maybe I'm just not remembering. But that would be interesting, right? That one would be very popular these days. Okay. But one cannot achieve the actual perfection of yoga by any other means, because what's the actual perfection of yoga? The actual perfection of yoga, of course, is to achieve Krishna, to achieve love, to be united in love with Krishna yoga. So that actual perfection, of course, you cannot achieve without bhakti, which is what Krishna says in Bhagavad-gita from chapter 12 or chapter 13 onwards. He finishes every chapter. But without bhakti, you can't do it. But without bhakti, you can't do it. But without bhakti, he keeps hitting that same message. Without bhakti, you can't do it. And now he's doing it again. Without bhakti, you can't even do it. So all these things, and he says you can achieve all these powers just with bhakti. But again, not something, because Krishna knows that it would drive us mad. So out of love, he is not giving any bhakti yogis these powers as far as I am aware. Certainly would drive me nuts. I know I would not be responsible enough to receive any of these powers. Purport. By taking birth as a demigod, one is automatically endowed with many mystic perfections, right? And demigods and the siddhis, and there's all these different species in the universe of different races of beings who are endowed with powers. The asuras, of course, so they have all these different powers by birth. Simply by birth on Siddha-loka, one automatically acquires all of the 8 principal perfections of yoga. So the Siddha-loka is a very elevated place in the universe, way beyond the demigods. And people there, they are born with all those 8 mega powers. Similarly, by birth as a fish, one becomes invulnerable to water. By birth as a bird, one gets the mystic perfection of flying. And by birth as a ghost, one gets the mystic perfection of disappearing and entering into the bodies of others. So there you go, right? And of course, as I always remind you, like these days, we've got all these superpowers, right? Like you're seeing me, you have the power of distant viewing and hearing. I'm so far away from you. I'm probably on the other side of the world for some of you, and still you can see and hear me. That's a superpower. I was just flying around across the world. That's a superpower. I was just getting from one corner, one side of the planet to the other in a few hours. That's amazing. So we have, of course, all these powers now as well. Patanjali Muni states, Patanjali from the Yoga Sutras states that the mystic perfections of yoga can be achieved by birth, herbs, austerities, and mantras. The Lord states, however, that such perfections are ultimately a waste of time and an impediment to achieving the actual perfection of yoga, which is Krishna consciousness. Those who give up the process of bhakti yoga and shop around for other objects of meditation besides Krishna are certainly not very intelligent. Those who claim to be yogis but pursue the satisfaction of their own senses are certainly kuyogis or bhogi yogis. So bhogi yogis is just like a derogatory term. Such kuyogis cannot understand that just as they have tiny senses, the absolute truth has absolute senses. Nor can they understand that yoga is actually meant to satisfy the absolute senses of the Lord. Therefore, persons who give up the lotus feet of Lord Krishna in order to pursue so-called happiness in mystic perfection will undoubtedly be frustrated in their attempt. By meditating exclusively on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one can achieve yoga-gati, the ultimate goal of yoga, which means living on Lord Krishna's planet, and therefore enjoying spiritual opulences. That's the real goal of yoga. Verse 35. My dear Uddhava, I am the cause, the protector, and the Lord of all mystic perfections, of the yoga system, of analytic knowledge, jnana, of pure activity, and of the community of learned Vedic teachers. So he is, Krishna is saying, I am the protector of the siddhis, of yoga, of Sankhya, and of Dharma. Those are the words he uses in Sanskrit. So, and of the Brahmavadinam, the learned community of Vedic sages. So he is the cause, protector, and the Lord of such things. According to Srila Sridhar Swami, the word yoga here indicates liberation from material life, and Sankhya indicates the means of obtaining liberation. Thus, Lord Krishna is not merely the Lord of material yoga perfections, but of the highest liberated perfections as well. One can obtain Sankhya, or knowledge leading to liberation, by performing pious activities, Dharma. And Lord Krishna is also the cause, protector, and Lord of such activities. As you've seen, this connection, we have this connection of Dharma. From Dharma you get Jnana, from Jnana you get Sattva, and so they feed each other. So the Dharmic activity will give you knowledge, and the knowledge will give you Sattva, and Sattva will give you knowledge, will give you Dharmic activity. So it's a way of supporting activity. So one thing you do supports the other, and then you keep progressing ever higher. And as well as of the learned teachers who instruct ordinary people in the means of piety. So Krishna is the protector of the knowledge, of the yoga, of the system, of becoming enlightened. He's the protector of the people who teach others about these things. So Krishna is behind all of it. In many different ways, Lord Krishna is the real object of meditation and worship for every living entity. So whether you want knowledge, whether you want mystic power, whether you want just to be a dharmic good person, Krishna is where you have to go to. Lord Krishna, through the expansion of his potencies, is everything. And this simple understanding, called Krishna consciousness, is the supreme perfection of the yoga system. Verse 36. Just as the same material elements exist within and outside of all material bodies, similarly, I cannot be covered by anything else. I exist within everything as the supersoul, and outside of everything in my all-pervading feature. So now Krishna is shifting the conversation from these yogic powers to his opulences, his powers, the nature of God. So this is going to be the theme of the next chapter, which this is the last verse. So Krishna, Krishna is within everyone. He's the super soul. He's within everyone. He's within everything as the super soul within every atom. And of course, he is the all-pervading Vasudeva. He's everywhere in any situation. And everything is his energy. Matter is his energy. Consciousness, us, we are his parts and parcels. So Krishna is just everywhere. Purport. Lord Krishna is the entire basis of meditation for all yogis and philosophers. And here the Lord clarifies his absolute position. So why do you worship the Lord? Why do you meditate on the Lord? Because he is the source of everything. Nothing is outside of him. So why would you go somewhere else and get confused when you can just go directly to the source of it all? And here the Lord clarifies his absolute position. Since the Lord is within everything, one might think that the Lord is divided into pieces. However, the word anavrita, or completely uncovered, indicates that nothing can interrupt, disturb, or in any way infringe upon the supreme existence of the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead. There is no actual separation between the internal and external existence of the material elements, which continuously exist everywhere. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is all-pervading and is the ultimate perfection of everything. Very well, so now we've finished this chapter, and I hope you enjoy that, and we'll see you next time if Krishna permits, and have the rest of your day with lots of peace and lots of love.